Hi, I'm Chris Brown, RPT of Grandwork Tools, and I'm about to embark on action work that includes regulation and weigh off and the replacement of some parts on a Steinway B from 1911. This time I'm going to use my Full Monte Regulation Station. And at this point, I'd like to introduce you to the various components of that system. This is the custom key bed, regulating rack, string height gauge and rail, their tool trays. It has 3 rails that adapt to the keyframe. Once the keyframe has been bedded and sampled in the piano, can set up to those samples out here accurately and do a regulation that then doesn't need touch-up when we get back to the piano. A nice feature of this is that you can preset heights that are useful to you. Following is at the top of its range. The first one was the bottom of its range. And depending on your physical size, but also on the various operations that you do, different heights can be advantageous. There are protocols that I've written out, and they're 2 pages each. They can go on the front and the back of 1 page, used as checklists or just for your reference as to order of operations and the procedures that I personally use and recommend. So there is the bedding protocol. That actually doesn't use any of my tools, although it does employ W&G keyframe bedding tool. Then there is the sampling protocol, which uses my key steps and a few other components, which I will show you. Then there's the regulation protocol, which gives you the overall in outline form list of the things to be done, and with some detail. And then there's the alignment protocol, which discusses the principles behind the work. For my 3 levels of system, I have a setup and order of operations for each, and this one for the Regulation Station Full Monte is 11 pages of outline in an order of operations that works well in my experience. Underneath these protocols and the setup and order of operations is an action tray, which has 88 holes on either side. It's very solid, washable, and anyway, it's a great place to take your action parts off and store safely in order, and keeping the screws in order so an oversized screw doesn't go into an undersized hole, or an undersized screw go into an oversized hole and cause trouble. There's another version of this tray that is less expensive because it doesn't have the holes, that I use for doing repairs and such, and keeping whatever that work is contained, and makes it easy to store as well. This is the W&G keyframe bedding tool. I find it dispassionate in its display of whether the balance rail is setting down on the key bed or not. glide bolt by glide bolt. This is the sampling kit, which involves a WNG dip tool. I actually use it for its weight and the feature of its self-positioning. So these little wings go up against the key fronts of the neighboring naturals as this depresses that natural. And I use it for sampling string heights with a weighted kissing sample. Of course, you can use it as a dip tool too, and it comes with its little crossbar. These are key steps, and they come in two sizes. This is a 10 millimeter, so in its most contracted form, a 10 millimeter screw is press fit and screwed all the way to the bottom of the rest of the key step. Each key step has an oval hole which fits around the key pin, and it is countersunk so that the shoulders of the key pin, if they're not all the way flush to the front rail, won't destabilize. So you get an accurate measurement. The key steps serve another function apart from sampling the bedding of the keyframe, and that is for the leveling of keys. They fit over the front rail key pin under 1 and 88 or 85, whatever the top note is. And when those keys have been pre-leveled and the machine screw is turned up to just touch the underside of the key, that key will be solidly supported for leveling of the other keys. That just touching makes the key a sample of the shape of the keyframe. In that, now the key touches the back rail cloth, the balance rail punching, and the key step at the back rail, the balance rail, and the front rail touches all three rails, and therefore becomes a gauge for the bedding. But in its function for leveling, it supports the end keys, and the straight edge rests on top of the keys that are supported by the key step. And then there's a sample taken in the middle. I use E44 as that sample. And in that case, the key step raises that sample key up until it touches the straight edge that is supported by the two end keys. And in that case, it represents the shape of the front rail from side to side. This is particularly important in the case of a crowned front rail, as in a Steinway, which is, of course, going to be the case for the piano I'm about to demonstrate with. Now there's one more item here that also serves for leveling keys, and that is a pair of Roki sharp leveling blocks. And they have, let's see if we can adjust it so they can be seen. They have 5 steps in increments of 0.008. The sharp leveling block rests on the natural that is supported by the key step. And a choice is made of one of 5 heights for the leveling stick to then sit on for leveling the sharps. So you've got a Roki block at either end, sitting on 1/88 supported by key steps, and that provides a solid support, exactly reproducible as you go through the rounds of leveling needed in your regulation. This is a 200-gram weight that you put on string number 3 when you're doing the kissing samples of strike to offset the pressure that the weighted sample applies to, through the hammer, which is kissing the string for the measurement, to the most flexible string that gets sampled. The others probably won't need it, but it's available if so. This is a weigh-off kit, and at the front through there are various up weights. In the middle row and the top row as alternates are pairing weights, and it's set up either for even down weight and incremental up weight, or for a balance weight. A balance weight of 37 would be, you take a pairing weight of 34 over an up weight of 20, and you lift the pairing weight off. When the key is depressed, the key will lift that. You put the pairing weight back on. It now is a 54-gram weight for your down weight. And anyway, that works out as a balance weight of 37. And it comes with some copper weights, which is what I now use for weighing off, to sample with, and a piece of chalk. This is the hammer filing jig, and it is used with the hammers off their rail, and the hammer is placed on one side, and it does a very clean, consistent job, gives you a lot of control over the shape, and it goes faster than doing it by hand as well. Then there are lighting rails. The medium and the short are shown here, and Little Larry battery-powered light. Of course, you gotta take this little protective thing off the batteries before it will light up. The squaring platform, which includes the shank traveler. This sits out over the from the back of the action, and shank by shank they travel up between the reference edges, and it gives you a way of making things vertical in the action. And the other aspect of verticality is the hammers as they strike the strings. And you can set up the hammers with the squaring platform so they are held in strike position, and square them with the hammer square. This has articulated legs so that you can bring the edge of those legs closer or further from the hammer, depending on how wide the hammers are. So there are two other components to this system. One is the WNG key leveling stick, which has a 30-second crown on one side, and then the other side is straight. Very useful tool. And then I've just set up on the squaring platform the hammer hanging jig. Now this moves from section to section. This little rail, you set it up with 2 sample hammers at either end of a section. You bring them up to strike, which is provided by the regulating rack. And then you bring the, and you set it up so that the tails just touch the inside of this rail, and the shoulders touch the shoulder rail. The shoulder rail is brought out to touch the shoulders. And you set them up to the samples, and then it's a straightforward process of touching tail and shoulder to each hammer as they're hung, and then squaring them to vertical. And that squaring can be touched up when you're done. So there's one other tool missing from this that I will now fetch and then show you. Okay, and it is the hammer square light, because when these rails are set up, there isn't enough room for the depth of the hammer square articulated. I have this very skinny but square and straight version that that you employ for keeping things as square as you can as you go. Of course, you can use your eyeball too, but then when you're done, off comes the hammer hanging jig, and use the squaring platform to fine tune at strike the hammers. And that is the Full Monte regulation station that I am about to employ for action work on the 1911 Steinway B. And please like, subscribe, or follow the link in the notes to my website.